Hello, everyone. This is Gene from the We're Gaming from the Balcony, and I'm here with Keith and Jeremy, and a couple others will probably be joining us later, and we'll just kind of introduce them and bring them in as they show up. So, say hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
There you go. Perfect.
What's up, everybody?
All right. So we came here to talk about the Skaven, the recently released guidelines and feed guidelines for the new Skaven. And that can be found in the news section of the Ninth Age forum. So let's kick it off. I mean, the first thing they bring up is the background, kind of based on the Roman legion with houses for, I guess, flavor.
Yeah, I think that's a great call. Also, the Skaven have always kind of have houses. You had the different clans, really. So if it's coming along with that theme, I think that's a cool way to do it. And make sure that each house kind of has enough units and flavor so that you can play, not exclusively, but if you want to play like the majority Clan Pestilence or a majority Clan Molder, you could probably do it pretty well. I think that would be a great way to go.
Yeah, I'm hoping as long. I think it's a great idea too. I think as long as they keep it away from like old school demons where like certain houses couldn't play with certain other houses, I think that would kind of just make for frustrating army construction. But otherwise, like flavor wise, I think it's a pretty cool thing.
Okay. Yeah, the other thing I picked up as far as army composition. They kind of said swarm is the theme of this army, and one comment I saw in there somewhere that 4 units of 50 ranked infantry should not be uncommon.
I mean, the only question I have about that is like you can do that now with slaves, and no one does. So,
exactly.
Like I have concerns about them. It's more. I'm fine with that being a design point. Just make it actually work.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I think the coolest thing about the army composition section that I read was I really like the ideas of a bunch of war platforms and having this be like the war platform army, because that could really, it just adds a ton of flavor. It adds a ton of like list options. I like it. So
yeah, and if it's Roman, it's like, you get those Roman lords being carried in to wherever they're going by by their slaves. I mean, it kind of makes sense. I think that could be pretty cool. Yeah, I like the war platform idea. I think that's a great.
I do like the war platform idea, and they mentioned specifically like the grinder option.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, maybe let them join more than one unit though. That would be cool.
Yeah, flexing that out and letting it join multiple, any unit, and even adding more different kinds of models for that. Yeah, I would really like to see 4 units of 50 ranked infantry show up on a table one day.
Yeah.
It's a lot of painting.
It is. Yeah. It is a lot of painting.
Dust off the unit fillers for that one.
Exactly. Yeah. The unit fillers get larger and larger. There's also quite a bit of talk about cohorts and breaking your army into, I guess, subsections.
Yeah, it kind of makes me think of like the 40K thing where they have like multiple units in different like blocks as you construct lists. It's interesting. It really depends how they do it, but I think it'd be cool to see like, if you take like 2 units of slaves and X character, you get like some kind of bonus or like that kind of stuff.
I think it's already what I'm hopeful for this is that we'll see characters that are themed around the cohort, like the old Master Molder character, which was like would somehow buff rat ogres and giant rats or something like that. Like part of this already exists. The way I look at it is this is similar to the disciples being near plague monks and getting their leadership boost so that you can keep them more under control. Like they benefit from being near the plague monks, right? So having something like that for the Clan Skyer or Molder or Eshin, would like having those design things so that the Eshin stuff works better when they're near each other, etc. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's kind of what I had thought, is a character maybe a short inspiring presence range, just to kind of boost a couple units around them that are the same house type thing.
Yeah, or even give them some other benefit with shooting, like maybe they can shoot more accurately. Sort of like the way engineers help war machines. You could have like, the machinists might be able to help Jezzails or weapon teams or other shooty units near him, kind of deal to be more effective or more reliable, one or the other.
Right. Now, I did notice that, that when talking about the units, they did say that the unit quality is they want it to kind of go down, is the indication I saw.
So I don't know if they mean this only for like the ranked up infantry, or if all my stuff is going to be shittier but costs less, so that like maybe I can have a ton of rat ogres and they're just not that good individually right now. I have some concern about this because if you take it too far, like your numbers won't matter. Like if something can stand up to 4 static combat res or 5 static combat res, like say like a lizardman cowboy, I'm never going to break him. So he can just tie up something. Of course, he might not break me either, but like we're now pinned and take that down. Like maybe it's not a 400-point lizardman cowboy. Maybe it's a 200-point Cayman hero. Maybe it's like a Bretonnian, like a cheap Bretonnian hero that can just jam up all your big blocks.
Yeah, T4, 2 up armor, just sit there and plug you forever.
And the other fear I have there is if all my basic troops are shitty, and you'll see later on it talks about not wanting to allow me to create like a front rank of characters that makes the unit very effective. If I can't do that either, my only choice is load up on all these unreliable shooting things, and then my blocks pin you or you jam up my blocks. Either way, doesn't matter. And then we just sit in combat while I shoot at you all game and see how effective my stuff is before I die. And that sounds like a very negative play experience for both players.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that they work it out. It's also like you can't just have everything be shitty. Like
right.
At some point, people don't, I've got cold-blooded 9. Like I'm just not going to break, or they've got to be very careful with that aspect of it. I think.
I agree.
Unless if the war platforms end up being like, this is what does the damage, then that's, I guess, a good thing. But I don't know how much shitter you can make, like, ratted arms. You know what I mean? Like, they're basically just naked little rats running around with, nothing. They don't have anything going for them. They're like humans. So
yeah, actually, they're supposed to, based on, again, something else in the guideline I saw was that a one-on-one rat model versus anybody else should probably lose.
Yeah, I'm fine with that for the most part.
Just the numbers.
But yeah, exactly. And it all depends, I think, what they do with the leadership thing too, because obviously, like, that's traditionally like the big deal with VS. So as long as they still have some kind of strength in numbers thing,
right?
I don't know. I still think that's a dangerous line. Like one-on-one, a rat should lose like easily or like reliably to one goblin. Like how shitty do you want clan rats to be?
Zombies.
Right, yeah, or a zombie, like it's going to lose to a zombie. Like I don't know if they
can't lose to a zombie, but I'm just saying it's
skink.
Well, like something they could do to make clan rats shittier is, it's tough because all the models have shields, but like I would say, like take the ability to get parry away from them. That way, they can't tie up stuff. But things like that. Like you can't just make them not able to fight at all, right? Because then again, it's just going to be gun lines all day.
Yeah,
correct. And big blocks to tie you up, or the gun lines just pour it into you.
Yep.
Right. Like having the elite options like rat ogres or disciples or hell pits or whatever to help complement the army is good. Those things still need to be good. They can't just be garbage. Like, oh, I've got 7 hell pits, but one magic phase kills 2 of them if you have fire. It's like, okay, it's not really going to help me then.
Yeah, Keith and I were talking about actually rat ogres earlier and how I think it'd be really cool to do like the mixed rat-at-arm rat ogre units like skinks and caimans right now.
Correct.
I think that would be really solid. Even if they debuff rat ogres a bit, maybe make them like strength 4 instead of strength 5 or something. I don't know. It'd be cool.
Yeah. I don't think they really have to make rat ogres shittier. I think they're already questionable in terms of how much you want to take them.
The discipline problem now is just big.
Yeah, well, it's very. They need to fix that, right? Like, I don't think the rank bonus thing works anymore.
Yeah,
I think they should have generally pretty good leadership as long as they outnumber their enemy. Maybe it has something to do with being steadfast, and then consequently, if you're not in combat, you're always steadfast unless you're a skirmisher. In which case, maybe skirmishers never get bonus or single models never get a bonus. But like
I think it's like if you took something along the same lines as strength in numbers, maybe for Radogers, it's like as long as they're fighting something smaller size than them, then they're steadfast or something like that, or have +2 discipline or something.
I think the big thing. I think the big thing is that they should not reliably rally. I think that should be like almost like a reverse high elf situation where high elves almost automatically rally, and that's their big benefit. It's like maybe it's really hard to get the big blocks and stuff to break, but once they do, it's very hard to rally them. Like, you know.
Yeah. And they actually did mention that somewhere in here.
I think they did. Yeah, I think that's appropriate. I think that fills the sort of cowardly aspect of the army, is that once they've broken, they're just, you know, probably not coming back. Because that's a very big design flaw for me. Like at Masters, I had my huge block. I played Eugene. Yeah. I had a big block against Len, and I had my Fellblade guy kill himself, and then he charged like at the end of a turn, and then he charged me with 2 stags. I'm like, I don't think I can fight 2 now without the Fellblade. So I fled, and I just never rallied, right? Because I had all my guys in there, so it was just a 7 a couple times, just never made it. So it's already a problem, it's already there. Just maybe reworking how that is, but keep a similar theme to that, I think would be a good idea.
Okay, yeah. Moving on, I saw special deployments. Underground employment looks like it. Underground ambush looks like it may make some kind of face, kind of like the Tomb Kings have, where you can come back in something coming up in the middle of the board, and from what I can see.
Yeah, I think this is great, like flavor wise, and I think it makes total sense. And it's, you know, it's, even though they have like base move 5, VS has like never been a super fast army. So like, and especially with big blocks, I think a way to get big blocks around the table would be really cool, because they don't have access to any movement magic either. So I like this idea a lot.
Well, I'd be curious to see how they try to do it, because this would not necessarily be a unique thing so much as and maybe it doesn't need to be. Maybe I think they're talking about having the VS be like a parody of essentially Empire, essentially, but you could have that be true for other armies as well. Like, because like, you know, like you said, Tomb Kings have underground ambush. Warriors have a Hellmaw where they can teleport units. Maybe you make some big tunnels from one point to another, or maybe a unit arrives via deep strike effectively, like underground ambush. These are all things that could work with tunnels. You could also, that's not the limit to it either. Maybe you get to set something up before the game, and there's just 2 points on the table that you can move between.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I would kind of like to see the thing before the game more than anything. I'm not that crazy about the tunneling during the game. It's like, really, you can dig as fast as my troops can move.
Well, but that's what it would be a support. Yeah. It would be a unit that you would have to buy to make the tunnels if it was something like that, sort of like the Hellmaw, right? I think for arriving anywhere on the table, it would have to be underground ambush, right, where the unit just pops up and rolls a chance to see if they move or whatever. But yeah, taking a unit that's already on the table and moving it somewhere else would have to be very carefully thought out.
Right. We've already got one of those.
Yeah. It's also a bit harder when you have much bigger units, right? Like, one of the reasons why it's easy to portal warriors, because you're teleporting a chariot or like 8 guys. It's not 50 guys. You know what I mean? Like,
good point.
There's a much bigger footprint needed to fit that unit somewhere. So
yeah, it would be a lot easier to block if you did something like that. And I'm sure I would hope that the underground ambush type thing is limited in size.
Well, I'm sure it'll only factor for a few units, right? And this could also be somewhere to add more to Clan Mulder, because they're a little kind of left out. Like, they have giant rats, they have rat ogres, rat swarms, and the hell pit, right? So you have a monster, you have 1 fighting unit, and then you have effectively chaff units, right? So having another real unit would be something interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Kieran.
There we go.
How it goes, guys? Sorry, I'm late.
How's it going,
How you
man?
doing?
Yeah, it's my fault. I had the time zone wrong, I think. Yeah, we were just talking about the thoughts around tunneling, Kieran.
Oh yeah, no, it's a cool mechanic, as long as it's done differently from Beastman, basically.
Yeah, just ambushing everywhere. I'm secretly hoping that there's some like items around this too. Like maybe they change up like Seal of the Underminer and make it actually something that anyone in the world ever takes in the list. You know what I mean? There's like a couple things like that in the book where it's just I've never seen them. So it'd be cool to like do some tunneling items too. Or maybe just
9/10 of the viewers of this aren't going to even know what that item is because
it's never seen a board game. Yes,
because you never want to win that roll. It's like +1 to win a roll. I never want to win. Cool.
What does it do actually? I don't know.
You can make something DT right for everyone, and then you can also get +1 to the roll to see which side of the table you're on, which is the roll you always want to lose.
Which correct.
Yeah.
It's like a slightly worse version of the Warriors. Is it Burning Torch or whatever?
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Wasteland Torch.
That's it. A slightly worse version of an item nobody takes.
Although I will give you this on the new maps, if you've looked at them, the latest release they've come out, there's impassable all the way against the back edge of a board, so it just basically seals off a side of the table.
Yeah, the new maps are interesting.
Anyway, that's a different subject. But all right, so that's the ambush. Characters are next. Cheap, low power. They said something about working together to, the buffs increasing as they work together. But they also said something about mistrust and backstabbing involved.
I think this is a terrible idea. Like, this is like the dumb shit. This is the dumb shit like Intrigue at Court that was awful for high elves back in like 6th edition. It's like, so we want the troops to be shittier. We want the characters to not buff the troops all the time. And then we basically want to give you a worse version of animosity. And this will be a fun army for both armies, for both people to play. Like, all right. I don't mind the idea of having people work together. Like, maybe have like like an assassin triad or something like that. That could be interesting, but I don't like the idea, like the whole mistrust and like screwing each other over. Like, that's cool for like the fluff for novels, but like making my army like deliberately sabotage itself, like
Yes.
That's just not going to. The only way that works is
was removed for a reason.
Yeah, well, it's also if my guys were way better than everyone else's, but they fought each other, okay, now you're telling me they need to be shittier than everyone else's and then not work together. I'm like, come on.
Yeah,
I don't even know how they'd manage that, because the race is saying, yeah, we want to have synergy. Okay, that's cool. Also, we want to have anti-synergy. Okay, guys.
Yeah, I just don't know how they implement some kind of mistrust mechanic without it being terrible.
The only way I could see this potentially working is something like you have like a house rivalry, like they were talking about the cohorts above, where like Pestilent units work better near Pestilent units. Maybe there's some sort of negative if you have Pestilent units around Skyr units. Like maybe the Skyr units get nervous having all these crazy disciples near them. Something like that that's controllable by me as a player. Like, I don't have to put them near each other. But if it's just like roll to see if your two characters in the same unit like squabble, I'm like, no, that's fucking stupid.
Yeah, the thing I think that worries me the most in the document here is like having BSBs with abnormally short range. Like our units are already 50 dudes. They're saying above. Like the 6-inch BSB or even 9-inch BSB would be super hard to manage unless you're just like pancaking everything in on top of each other, and it's just
and then it becomes extremely hard to maneuver when you have giant units like that.
Even if they're going to allow multiple of that, I mean, it's still if you're in the middle of a unit, you're reaching a one unit on each side of you.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they could do something like Warriors where they have like each character has its own thing. I don't know.
I think it could be something like when you like remember like older combats and wars and stuff. You'd always have people with flags to, relay orders. Instead of it being like a shittier BSB, maybe just have an ability to buff units with something like this, but not have it be BSB. Have it be some other kind of benefit that a unit can get by having like flag bearers or something to that effect. I think making it harder to use BSBs in an army that's going to have questionable leadership issues is just going to make the army unplayable.
Yeah, maybe even like something like Empire orders, but it's like characters can only give orders to units from their own house or something. So it's like it kind of sucks because like you can't give orders to all the stuff around you, but you could build lists around the concept and that were good. You know what I mean?
Oh, please don't introduce orders for Vermin Swarm. We are already a hairy empire.
Yeah, I don't
Please,
want
no.
as much as I understand the sort of parody aspect of it. I don't want to just have a bunch of rules from other armies with a slight twist on them. That makes me not unique. That makes me just a parody. It's not that interesting.
I'm not going to derail the conversation, but I think what they've done for synergy for the new Infernal Dwarfs are quite good. They've managed to get a lot of theme and flavor and rules, and they all kind of work together. I'm sure some things have been nerfed and beaten out and all the rest, but they've gotten a nice fire dwarf magic and infantry feel to it. So hopefully, if they can do something similar with rats for on Horde, I mean, it could be good.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Characters. Next thing on the list that I have was the Vermin Demon, the Ducks, as it is now.
I don't like this part. I think the biggest you can fix the Vermin Demon mostly with one rule: just give him not a leader,
Right.
and that fixes most of it. Because the whole problem was that you had an 18-inch leadership 9 bubble and made them the most reliable leadership army in the game, pretty much. And that was also because he got Div, which gave you the Div attributes. You could really like, oh, my Scaredy Cat army is on leadership 10 minimize roll, so
Yeah,
just make him not a leader, and then that like. Because right now he's 840 points or something like that. I would say that leadership ability is worth like 200 points. So if you just knock that off, then he's already down a lot weaker than he was before.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, they're talking a serious hammering for that guy. Under 500 points, low. What was it? Lower offense, defense, and attack abilities.
mm-hmm.
And not a magic level lowered on him, so no longer a master anymore.
Yeah, their idea is maybe he's super tough and he's hard to get rid of. I'm like, isn't that what the 50-man block is for? Like, is he just a single model 50-man block effectively? Like,
Yeah, I just don't understand what the role of this guy is supposed to be, like, given this outline, really. It's not, it doesn't seem like it's a great design.
What if they do all that to him and you can put him in a unit as a war platform?
well, then people just swing on the unit and then his toughness doesn't matter.
That's a good
Because he can't kill anything now because they don't want him to be offensive. So
Yeah, that's a fair point.
big but not very skilled. Okay.
Is he supposed to still be a demon? Is he losing those rules, or
I don't think it really. Basically, they want him to be below the typical gigantic creature
Right.
character. So worse than a scourge, that's fine. Worse than dragons, worse than an avatar of nature.
I say give him the ninja giant from the Giants book.
Just as their example here is the benchmark, aim for the average stat line around the same value as a 200-point character. That sounds good. I'll pay 500 points for a 200-point character.
Yeah.
So an Ogre Khan, a Cayman Ancient, a Minotaur Chieftain. So not even a Minotaur Lord, a Chieftain.
Right.
So, I mean, if they want to just say there's no Vermin Demon, just do that. That seems better than this.
And then just make this new thing. I mean, that could be what they're doing, I guess.
Yeah, like give us a couple flavors of help.
No, I mean, don't even try to rename it and whatever. Just fucking throw it out because this is garbage.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a super tough Cayman Ancient for 500 points. Okay. Don't think I needed that.
Yeah. I'd rather have abominations with like lasers strapped to their backs and shit.
There you go.
Because they're intending for him to continue to be supernal. So the fear there would be if I'm super tough, which I don't take that much damage, and I'm supernal, but I can't kill that much, like anything I can't stomp that charges me is just going to crumble me from static combat res. So
do you want to put him in a support combat character role, basically?
Yeah. I think it's fine with him. I think it's fine with him being offensive and being good, as long as he's not the general. He can't be the leader.
Right. You're right. I think you're right a lot. Not a leader would go a long way to fixing that model.
Or give him a different lord. Take Div away from him so that he can't boost the leadership of the army in any way.
Yeah. You know what? I really liked early Ninth Age, the Skaven lore. So if he had like some special abilities that like could pass out like attack and extra ranks or some of the stuff like that original lore did, I think was really cool, and it really like was flavorful with the horde rules, because that was the lore attribute, was you can just pass out
fight an extra
attack
rank.
extra rank, fight an extra rank, which was sweet. So maybe that's his attribute, and he gets like shamanism or something like that. That kind of like something unique like that, I think would be maybe interesting. But yeah, I think this has a lot of problems on paper.
Yeah. That kind of puts him down to a war wagon type, the Empire buff wagon.
It says is it a good way to impact the model? They want to allow the model's impact to be high, but but to give it meaningful drawbacks. So, like, I'm not really sure where they're going with this one. Like, if you want him to be like this big tyrannical leader that is hated and feared by the other Vermin Swarm, then he is the leader. So then I guess maybe that's all he does, is he runs around the army spreading his leadership and not. I mean, that's what some games that's what he does right now. So
correct.
That's the best thing he does. And
that's right.
That's stuff. Turn 5-6, charge something.
Yeah.
Right.
So in that way, making him more survivable actually just makes the leadership element better in that case, which is probably not what they want to do. I'm not sure.
Well, if they're lowering his offense and they want to make him a support, it's a bit counterintuitive, because if he doesn't have great offense and he's hard to kill, but he needs to charge in with a unit, opponents will always just kill units and leadership test him off.
Right.
So he doesn't make a great support monster then.
Yeah. Unless, of course, he could make his unit stubborn.
Or is stubborn himself or something. Something similar.
Anyway.
Yeah, stubborn would go a long way for him.
Yeah, stubborn and some grind attacks or something like
If
that.
you were going to put him as something to join a unit, then giving him stubborn, I think, might make that work.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But he's still going to be gigantic because of the size of the actual model. So, the basic rules. We break enough rules as is. Let's not put gigantic stuff into units.
Well, I mean, the warriors can put a giant in with them, and he's gigantic, right? They can put those into barbarians.
Yeah, that's true.
So, who knows? Yeah. All right. Magic, they're saying pretty much leave it alone. Nothing major they're saying there, except, of course, the Vermin Demon, Vermin Demon losing some. Shooting, primarily done in low volumes. Black powder is available, and shooting into combat is going to still be a thing, looks like.
Well, it's saying they want an important strategy for this army is its shooting. To use chaff, tar pits, and magic to enable shooting, stay alive longer, shoot more times.
Right.
Wait, is this handheld personal weapons are uncommon and do not contribute meaningfully to the army shooting? Is that like a direct, like, we don't want engineers anymore? Because it feels like that's a direct, we don't want engineers anymore.
No, because it says it wants high-tech machines and contraptions. I think the handheld personal might be that. I think that's more like footpads right now, like getting a ton of slings. I think they don't want. I think they want something like Gisele's and the weapon teams, where you have a few models that do a good job, but the volume of shots is not super high. So have more impactful, fewer shots.
I think if you're looking for volatility and fun, like bringing back the Doom Rocket is something I think every player wants a lot.
I'm gonna mute you for the rest of this conversation.
Yeah,
say that one more time.
I was wondering who was going to bring that up first.
I missed.
Screw it, Brass Orb. Brass Orb as well.
Absolutely.
Brass Orb is better than the Doom Rocket.
Wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's they're saying shooting is primarily done in low volumes and then with decent impact.
Kind of seems like maybe you don't have volley guns anymore, because volley guns are all about volume. So
unless that's low volume as far as models.
Yeah, it's unclear what they mean by that.
Right.
I think this can be fine, except like I said before, if it's done to too much of an extreme where it's my only answer to certain things because my guys can't fight and my demon sucks at fighting and my troops should lose one-on-one always and my characters fight each other, then the only recourse I have is like the old shooting Army of Doom thing with mass Giselles, mass cannons, mass Skyr shooting.
Right.
Which I thought everybody hated, but maybe I'm wrong about that.
You know, like a good way to like nerf, because obviously everybody hates Doom Wheels now, and they think they're like OP and stuff, and we can argue that later. But like, a cool way to like, make that interesting is maybe to make it like a war platform where it gets buffed the more rats you have in the unit, or something like a big old hamster wheel in the middle of your unit that just shock shit around you, So and it would be less mobile then too. So stuff like that. I'm hoping they come up with some interesting ideas like that for the war platforms and shooting. Because I'm sure that the Doom Wheel's not going to be in the new book.
Yeah, I do like what Keith mentioned. I mean, I think it was you mentioned earlier, is to make them kind of the war platform army.
Yeah.
And have many different war platforms to go in these units.
Yeah, I'd love to see a war platform for every house, right? Whatever that means, whether that's, like a Doom Wheel is the Skyr platform, whether you have a new kind of molder monster that can go into giant rats or clan rats or something like that. Whatever it is.
If Vermin Swarm were going to have crappier troops all around and have low volume firepower, and for the record, not my idea. We were talking about this in a different chat. But could shooting into combat affect combat res in the next round of combat?
Oh.
That would be interesting. That would certainly make it more doable if you get like an extra 3 combat res or whatever it is.
Or, well, it's 1 or 2 hits you, and it's combat res for the enemy.
Right.
That's actually an interesting option.
I like that, yeah.
Right, because they need something to allow them to actually break the enemy. Because with certain elite armies, just having 5 static just isn't enough. Like, you're going to get murdered in between. So you can't just engage and wait for them to whiff and then be like, haha, I win by 1. and then they're like, well, I made my check on a 9, so it's fine. I'm like, foiled,
Yeah, it's a good point. They do have to do something. They have to be able to win a combat.
Yeah.
And war platforms might be the answer. Of course, as soon as that war platform gets killed, then what do you got?
Yeah.
Right.
You could do the grinder as not a spear chucker. What's the orc?
The big stabber thing.
Yeah.
Big stabber, yeah. So if you made that as a unit upgrade for rat arms that can actually be targeted and just weaken it to D6 grind attacks or something like that, and then it's core points that's useful and stays as long as the unit is staying. So it's a reason to have big units. So that's.
Yep.
Yeah, they mentioned something like that too. Actually, they mentioned the Skink Cayman stuff too. So
they did mention the Skink Cayman thing.
Yeah.
I like both those options, actually.
Yeah.
So it can't be targeted and killed out is a good option.
Yeah.
Oh, going back to characters too. I don't know if you guys have read the new some of the new Dark Elf thoughts, but something interesting with the assassin. Like the assassin is something that never gets taken anymore. So I'm hoping they do some cool stuff with that too. Maybe like go back to the days when you could like hide them in units and pop them up wherever, or tunneling with the assassin would be really cool, I think, as well. So I don't know, we didn't mention him, but
yeah, coming up with a role for him I think would be very good, because you're right, he's just not taken very much right now.
No.
Jeremy, everyone forgot he existed and we just went straight over him.
I know. It's so true.
Well, so that's the other thing, right? Like, so what's your cohorts for Eshin, right? You have footpads, gutter runners, and an assassin. That's 3 units, and one of them's a character.
Yep.
So perhaps they do need the big sneaker giant. I'm not sure. They need Clan Eshin would need some love from somewhere. I'm not sure what that ends up being, but
through this whole document, I saw nothing really mentioning the abomination. Whether that's just didn't need to be mentioned or whatever.
they did mention something about having certain like elite support units, so I assume that's just what he is, right?
Okay. Yeah, that would make sense, I guess.
One thing I do worry about is like, I think clan rats, if they were a little shittier, could still be very useful. I'm not really clear at all what the hell storm vermin are supposed to be at that point, or vermin guard, because like they're already not great. And if you look at their models too, they're like literally twice the size of clan rats. Like maybe they should be tough 4, maybe they should be strength 4. You could have an elite like personal guard for like, you know, quote unquote the emperor, whatever high level politician exactly is here from our Roman theme would probably have an elite guard, you know, like the whole fluff from back in the day was that these would be like specifically fed a lot and they would be taken care of to become stronger and bigger. So the whole thing about just everything being shitty isn't really in the Skaven fluff. And like some of the like the Council of 13 fluff was that these guys had all lived hundreds of years because they've abused their position and like, you know, drawn the life out of the weaker rats. You know what I mean? So like the whole idea about the characters being terrible, I think just totally misses the original fluff of the army. And I don't think it actually makes the army better.
I thought they just snorted lots of powdered warpstone.
Well, that too, right? Yeah, but only the rich people can get it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Like I said, Horde. When they're talking about Horde, 4 units of 50 ranked infantry should not be an uncommon sight.
Yeah.
Like you said, you could, like Keith mentioned earlier, you can do that now, but no one does. You know.
I do also wonder, like, how exactly with this new design feature does a Skaven army get rid of an enemy character that's in a unit, right? I can't pick him out when I'm shooting into a unit unless I have like sniper Giselles, which I'm sure everybody would love.
Yeah.
But if like they're just engaged, if they're just engaged with one of my units, and my units are shittier than him, I'm never going to kill him. And my shitty clan rats certainly aren't going to kill him. So how do I deal with a powerful character in a unit? It's not clear to me how that's going to work.
You know, one thing that they could do with tunneling and like sort of having clan rats be shit is maybe some way to like call up reinforcements, like VC style, where it's like
create a new unit.
Yeah, well, no, you just grind and grind and grind, and then you like do something, or you have some kind of tunneling device or something, and like D6+4 clan rats just like add on to the back of the unit while you're grinding, you know?
Oh, regrowing because they're coming out of the.
And that way, like attrition wise, you can deal with characters, but still, it's like you're gonna get to the point where it's like a character against 50 clan rats, and you're just
right
forever. So I don't know. I don't know if it's like the solution to that problem, but it could be another interesting take on the tunneling stuff.
Yeah, before this started, I mentioned briefly my concern of a lot of what I see in here is with the talk of the backstabbing and internal controls with characters, machines being volatile, low risk or high reward, and then even that thing they talked about the maneuvers where some units might not do what you want them. That sounds like animosity, and that's gone.
Well, I like it when my decision or my opponent's decisions decide the game, not whether my army just doesn't do what I want it to do.
Correct.
Like it would be like, what if when orcs call the war cry on a 1, the army just takes panic checks instead? It's like that would be awful and stupid.
I agree.
Yeah. Messing with the movement phase, like what you try to do in the movement phase, I think is a good way to get like no tournament players to ever play that army.
Right.
It's just too much.
Like I understand the idea about things being expendable. I think that's fine. Like maybe they turn on each other because I'm shooting into a combat with my opponent, like my like the rival house's characters are in it, and I don't give a shit. Maybe they get hit. Like maybe that's all it is. It doesn't have to be like, oh, he doesn't accept the BSB reroll this turn. Like what? like I don't. Seems very strange.
Agreed. All right. I think that pretty much covered most of what we've seen. Is you guys got any more comments?
I'd like to see the sacrifice mechanic as a much bigger part of the army. I think the occultism ad was fantastic because it matches the theme that I have in my head for Skaven and Vermin Swarm, and I'd like to see Skaven Brew back as a positive and negative, that you're slowly poisoning your units to make them frenzied or whatever isn't a a nonsense mechanic that makes them too good, but can be even like poison and -1 toughness or resilience or something like that, or higher weapon skill, lower defensive skill, something that makes them better and worse as you're to show that you're poisoning them, or heart attacks in the unit, whatever mechanic. But I would like to see something like that back.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
That'd be absolutely cool. I think I'd like to see. I really do like the sacrifice idea. Like maybe you like throw dudes into the warp lightning cannon to supercharge it. Like that kind of thing would be awesome. I think if you could sacrifice dudes to like your machinery, I think that'd be really cool. And also, I would love to see something, and maybe it's the Dukes or Ducks, however you say it. Maybe it's something where it's got like some of the newer designs where it has like a set of abilities, and you can kind of choose which one you want to go with at the beginning of the game, or choose 2 out of the 6 abilities that are possible, that like a herald kind of thing. I'd love to see something like that in the army as well.
They seem to be adding that in some way to a lot of armies, where there's at least one model that can do something like that. I think it's great, but that's if you want the Ducks to actually be good and not be like a big fat toad that sits on the table and doesn't do anything. I'm hopeful that they expand the cohorts out. I would like to see Mulder and Eschen get some love in terms of units or options to make them more taken. Specifically Eschen, because other than getting, like 30 slingshots in the army, like they don't seem to ever be taken much. I think they should really consider talking to some of the people who just hate playing Skaven and why, and then maybe try to design away from that, because there's a lot of people who hate playing them because they have a lot of these multi-wound things. Like there's a lot of aspects to the outcome of a game that are not in either player's control. And it's just sort of like, does my multi-wound do 3 or 1, or does my doom wheel hit you 3 times or 1 time, and it's, the impact is so high that a lot of people don't like playing it or against it.
Right.
So to sort of double down on that thought or make it more that way, I think would cause a lot of people to really hate playing against Vermin Swarm. And we don't want to encourage negative play experiences. So this idea, like what you're saying about poisoning units to make them better, like making me reduce how long I can be steadfast to try to maybe grind them out, but actually have the ability to do so, might be interesting. Because if it backfires or you whiff, then you've just killed a whole bunch of your own guys for nothing.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. One other thing I want to mention is that, in the whole document, they mentioned nothing about toxic. So it doesn't mean anything as whether it goes, stays, whatever.
I think it'll still stay, because when they talk about the machinery or the high impact, I think that's what it means. Because like when you're talking about fewer shots but they're high impact, I think AP10 is a good way to make things high impact.
Yeah, definitely.
So I wouldn't be. I think they'll still be around. It's always kind of been part of the army. That's always been a theme, is sort of being pretty good at removing armor saves, at least when you're in range attacks.
I think it'd be a mistake to remove that from the army. Yeah, I think that role is still needed.
Might be more needed than ever.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Okay. Well, unless anybody's got anything else to add, I think that about does it. We can wrap this up.
Cool. Thanks, Gene, for having us.
All right.
Man.
Thanks, guys. I plan on doing a couple more of these about some other stuff, so I'll let you guys know.
Sounds good.
Appreciate the help.
See ya.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
All right, cheers. Good luck.